People often discredit ABA championships. As a Pacers fan, I've had plenty of people tell me that the Pacers' 3 ABA championships do not count. So today, I would like to talk about the ABA and hopefully educate people on just how important this league is to basketball history. Just to start, I would like to name some of the big name players who played in the ABA that you will probably recognize. Rick Barry, Roger Brown, Billy Cunningham, Mel Daniels, George Gervin, Artis Gilmore, Connie Hawkins, Dan Issel, Moses Malone, George McGinnis, David Thompson, and the best of them all, Julius Erving. These guys were the best the ABA had to offer. So how did they fare in the NBA? Well, some of them didn't ever play in the NBA. Roger Brown never did, and Mel Daniels only played 11 games in the NBA. But the rest of them literally just kept averaging their same numbers from the ABA. Rick Barry, Billy Cunningham, George Gervin, Connie Hawkins, Dan Issel, Moses Malone, George McGinnis, David Thompson, and Dr. J all kept similar averages once they joined the NBA. Some even improved statistically. And they were all All-Stars. Most of them were multi-time All-Stars. The only 2 players who didn't play well in the NBA either never played a game or didn't play until they were well past their prime. But I know this is not enough to convince you probably. I mean, these are some of the best players in ABA history. Obviously, they will succeed wherever they play. They have undeniable talent. So how about some role players? Let's go with Chuck Terry, a backup small forward who played over 200 games in the ABA. And his stats look about the same in his 135 games he played in the NBA. How about Maurice Lewis, who was a one-time All-Star in the ABA? He would go on to make 4 NBA All-Star teams and has almost identical stats in both leagues. Obviously, I'm cherry-picking here. There are plenty of guys who didn't do well in the NBA. But more often than not, those same guys weren't doing very well in the ABA either. If the ABA was such an inferior product to the NBA, then these guys would not just casually transition from one league to the next. So how about the teams? These teams' rosters stayed basically the same, so how did they do once joining the NBA? Well, the San Antonio Spurs didn't miss the playoffs until their 8th season in the NBA. Their records stayed the same once joining the NBA and never took a noticeable dip until well after they joined the NBA. The Pacers were less fortunate as they didn't make the playoffs or get above 500 until their 5th season in the NBA. But they also lost George McGinnis, Roger Brown, and Mel Daniels, 3 guys who were the core of those ABA championship teams back in the early 70s. And in the Pacers' final ABA season, they only won 39 games. And then in their next year in the NBA, they won 36. So their fall from grace was not due to joining the NBA, it was due to their championship core leaving and becoming old. The Denver Nuggets went from a 60-win season and a first-place ABA finish to a 50-win season and a NBA first-place finish in their division. And that was despite losing 3-time All-ABA selection Ralph Simpson. And the Nuggets didn't miss the playoffs until their 4th NBA season. So once again, another ABA team was not phased due to joining the NBA. And finally, the New York Nets, who then became the New Jersey Nets and are now the Brooklyn Nets. Well, they definitely had the biggest fall off of all, going from a 55-win season to a 22-win season. But the reason for this was because they lost their 2 top scorers from their last season in the ABA. One of those top 2 scorers being Julius Erving, who led the team in points, steals, blocks, assists, and rebounds, along with putting up 22 shots a game. So obviously losing him would be like the Nuggets losing Nikola Jokic. As you can see, most of these teams continued to play well, and the ones that didn't lost their best players once joining the NBA. The players and teams made an almost seamless transition into the NBA. If that isn't good enough proof that the ABA was just as good as the NBA, then I don't know what is. Ask any player or fan from that era and they will tell you that the ABA was just as good as the NBA. And the whole reason the NBA bought out the ABA and made the merger happen was because they were scared of the ABA. It had just as many big names and good teams as the NBA. But if you still need further proof, there were ABA vs NBA preseason exhibition games held from 1971 all the way to the final season of the ABA in 75 to 76. Now, in the first 2 years of these exhibition games, the ABA lost most of them, going 17 and 40. Yikes. But in the next 3 years, the ABA would win most of the games, going 15 and 10 in 73, 16 and 7 in 74, and 31 and 17 in 1975. For a total of 62 and 34 in the final 3 years. And in total, despite being 23 games back in the rivalry to start, the ABA would lead it 79 wins to 76 losses. And as an added bonus, the NBA wanted most of these games played in ABA arenas because they did not want NBA fans to see their teams lose, and then subsequently legitimize the ABA as a rival basketball league. And if you are saying, well, these were just preseason exhibition games, they probably weren't even trying. Well, you would be wrong, as these games were described as being intense, with many players and coaches being thrown out during these games. So for those of you who wanted to see how the ABA teams would do against the NBA teams, there you go. On average, an ABA team would beat an NBA team, and in the later years, an ABA team would dominate an NBA team. So I think at this point there is no argument to be had. It's clear the ABA had the same level of talent and competition as the NBA. There's a reason that teams won ABA championships and still hang those banners up to this day. So now let's talk about why the ABA was so influential to the NBA. Well, you know that three-point line that everybody uses today? The league who first introduced the three-point line to pro basketball was the ABA, and the dunk contest was also first introduced in the ABA. The ABA emphasized offense and entertaining basketball much like the NBA does today. Believe it or not, the ABA was the only league that encouraged dunking, as the NCAA had made a rule against it from 1967 to 1976, and the NBA discouraged it. The ABA is the only reason that NBA players are allowed to do what they do now. Flashy passes, dunking, three-point shooting, and players displaying their colorful personalities were encouraged by the ABA at a time when all other leagues discouraged it or outright made rules against it. So, stop discrediting the ABA players, teams, and championships they won. Because if they were in the NBA, they probably still would have been just as good. I'm Limitless Polls. Thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe for more. I've been really appreciating the support lately. My videos have been gaining more traction than I've seen them get in a while. It's been really encouraging to see. I thank you guys for all of the support. It's been really nice. See you guys next time.
Same fucking bitches. Got the chopsticks with extensions on my dick, cause I like that.